Everyone, my name is Michelle Nieviadomy. I'm joining from Amiskwaci, Waskagan, Edmonton, Treaty 6 territory. Feel free to use the chat box and let us know where you're joining us from. So welcome to Candu's Open Economic Development Open Forum. So last month was our first open forum and it was awesome. So if you're joining us again, welcome back. If this is your first time, I believe that you're in for a treat. It's a good opportunity to network, to share story, to maybe even talk about possible collaboration as well. So we're honored that you're here. So today's agenda just looks slightly different from last month. We do have a guest speaker today. So she'll present for about 15 minutes and then we'll break out into small groups and have some good discussion. You know, it's all about sharing their stories and their knowledge. And that's how we grow. That's how we become stronger as communities. I always love to listen to other people's stories and what they're doing in their communities. You know, in these interesting times of COVID, what's working, what isn't working, some of the strengths, some of the obstacles that you had to overcome. So it's just a really good opportunity just to get together virtually and really listen to one another and share as well. So come with an open mind, open heart, be ready to share in your small groups. We're so honored that you've decided to join us this afternoon. So a couple of things, there will be an evaluation link sent to you afterwards. And when you fill that out, your name will be entered to win a prize. So we have 3 prizes today. So they are $100 Nietzsche Gear gift card, $100 She Native gift card, and $100 Cookum Scarfs gift card. And on the topic of Cookums, I just want to say happy International Women's Day to all you Cookums, grandmothers, mothers, aunties. You know, it was our women who were the backbone of community, of our home fires. You know, we had to endure a lot in our history in this nation. So to where we are today, we can celebrate who we are as Indigenous people, as Indigenous women. So it's a good day to celebrate. So I hope you do something good for you and celebrate who you are. And don't forget to, you know, honor the women who've walked before us. You know, on their shoulders, you know, they paved the path. So we really want to acknowledge the ancestors. So happy International Women's Day. So it's my honor to introduce our next speaker, who is Marissa Lawrence. She's on speaking about CEDI, the First Nations Municipal Community Economic Development Initiative, aims to improve the economic prosperity of participating First Nations and adjacent municipalities through joint community economic development planning and initiatives. CEDI is a joint initiative of Cando and Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Through the CEDI program, Cando and FCM work with partner communities consisting of First Nations and adjacent municipalities and often other regional partners. As well, CEDI works to share lessons learned and stories of success as part of community of practice with those who are interested in joint First Nation municipal community economic development. So that was seemed like a lot, but I feel like we're in for a treat with Marissa. So she has worked with Cando as the Senior Program Officer for the First Nations Municipal Community Economic Development Initiative since July 2017. And as the CEDI Senior Program Officer, Marissa works with First Nation municipal partnerships to build and maintain respectable and equitable partnerships, and to build capacity in joint community economic development and land use planning. Marissa has a rich background of designing and convening community bridging intercultural dialogue and educational programming. She holds a BA in communications, minor in dialogue from Simon Fraser University, dialogue and civic engagement certificate from the same institution, and is a Can-Do certified technician, Aboriginal economic developer. Woo! So this woman who's coming to the stage has a lot of knowledge to lend us. So welcome, Marissa.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I really just want to build on what you said and really recognize that this event is created, planned, and hosted by incredible Indigenous women who I'm so incredibly fortunate to call my colleagues. And I want to say also the majority of us at Can-Do are women. So I really raise my hands to those today. My name is Marissa Lawrence. I'm coming to you from the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples here in Vancouver, BC. I do work as a senior program officer for the CEDI program. And I know, Michelle, everything we say with CEDI is such a mouthful. So thank you for all of that. So I'm just going to call us CEDI because that's the easiest way to talk about our program. I really want to thank Can-Do for the opportunity to share about the program here in this forum, but mostly I'm excited to get into the dialogue component. I'm going to tell you briefly about our program and the tools that we have available. So if it's all right, I'll just share my screen. Got a little bit of a PowerPoint here, and we'll take you through that. So as Michelle has said, we're a program that's co-delivered by Can-Do and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I think most of you know that Can-Do has a mandate to help to build capacity in Indigenous communities across this country, specifically in economic development, where FCM is really an organization to help to bring together the voices of municipalities across Canada to advocate for federal policy and program. They also deliver municipal development programming right across the country and internationally. So CEDI really has two program goals. And I often talk about these as 2 feet, and they have to move forward at the same time, otherwise you walk in a circle. And this is really important for us to remember that the first is really to build those sustainable, resilient, and equitable relationships between both elected officials and staff within First Nation and municipality. But then we also want to increase the capacity for joint long-term planning. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I really see the first as sort of building the relationship and the second as practicing that relationship. These are some of the benefits that we've really heard from participating partnerships over the years. And although, it's really important to, of course, acknowledge that First Nations and municipalities have very different jurisdictions and governance models on top of course, different cultures and languages. But there's always, there's often that shared vision to improve the lives of community members. And so while working across different jurisdictions, there are these benefits. So again, relying on each other to build that stronger, more united voice when attracting business to the region, but also with other levels of government. And that also speaks to how First Nations, of course, have a relationship with federal government and municipalities, more so with provincial or territorial governments. So opportunities there to leverage access to funding as well from different streams and different levels of government. Cost savings with more efficient program delivery, opportunities for local business development and job creation. Again, really accessing those unique financial, human, and physical resources. Each community brings something different. And ultimately, coordinated planning efforts. Like, we don't need to have 2 versions of infrastructure if we can do so more wisely together. And so looking at different ways of being in relationship together. I wanted to paint a picture of just how far we've worked across this country with a real variety of partnerships. So beginning with our pilot program in 2013, we engaged 6 partnerships, and then now in our second phase, 2016 to 2021, we've been working with 9 partnerships right across this country. And we've really worked with a range in an attempt to not only broaden our learning from a program perspective, but also to try and address the overwhelming interest that we've had. We have 400 plus outstanding applications for this program. So the need and the desire to do this work is really great. And so we try to pick partnerships that other communities could see themselves in, even if they can't participate in the program. And so, we're in treaty territory, we're in unceded territory, we're working with, different environmental concerns or economic development opportunities and different stages of relationship, some really poor, some a little bit better. So we'll hope that you might even see yourselves in some of these partnerships we'll share today. This is the CEDI Stronger Together approach. This is really the process that we bring to our partnerships. It's an evidence-based approach. We've learned from and with our communities as we've developed this over the years. And I really want to say, while it's laid out here like a linear process, it's not, it's cyclical. And we continue to come back to connect and vision. Again, that's really the foundation of the work, continuing to come back to the place where we ensure that we're walking this path together as First Nation and municipality. So I'm going to share a little bit about each one of these steps in a little more detail. So stage A, this is really where you want to meet, begin to build that stronger relationship and formally commit to establishing a partnership. And this, what we say around commitment through council resolution is this can't just be, the initiative of the dedicated few staff. This really has to be at both the elected level and at the staff level to say, this is an important thing for our communities. To establish a working group, again, we ask our communities to bring both elected officials and staff to that working group. And we ask that they continue to meet monthly. And the idea of coming back to that shared table is you're building relationship, you're practicing communication, you're building on opportunities and not just on issues when they arise. And that's really important. Stage B is really around creating a shared vision for the partnership and formally committing to it through a partnership agreement and other shared agreements and documents. So we ask the working groups to create a terms of reference to make really sure that we have a shared understanding about how we want to be in relationship together. How do we communicate with one another? What is a respectful way of being in relationship together? This is the time when you'd start to identify and prioritize those joint community economic development opportunities and your shared vision. And you could even go about drafting a friendship agreement. And this is really an opportunity to say, what is our long-term vision for our relationship? And how do we want to share that out with our communities? And so I've highlighted a couple of examples here. We have Bugnaqueg Mi'kmaq Nation and the county of Antigonish in Nova Scotia. And they shared and created a really symbolic friendship accord. And we have another example here from BC, the Okanagan Indian Band in City of Vernon. They too created a relationship accord and signed it in a really important way in a very important place, a place that has had a lot of contention for their communities over the years. And so that's something to think about as well. And I look back on those days when we could gather together and look forward to those again. But we have had a partnership create and sign, over Zoom for the time being. So there's still ways to move forward in these times. Decide, this is really when you want to start to there's always a million possibilities of what we could collaborate on, but it's really important to pick one thing and help that move to success. So creating a work plan for that selected initiative and creating a governance structure to manage the implementation, because you'll likely be sharing funds, whether they're grant funds that you're pulling together. So you need to have some kind of a structure about how will we do this together. Again, creating that work plan and maintaining that work plan, again, is one of those shared documents where we can continue to have an understanding about how we're in relationship together. And lastly, this stage D is called ACT, but I've started calling it ACT and ADAPT this year, because if anything, we know that we have to continue to adapt together. And that actually is really tough. And it's okay to acknowledge that so we can work through that. So creating a joint strategic plan in part with those work plans for those specific initiatives is really important, because again, as we've seen through COVID, what might have been a priority pre-COVID is maybe not a priority post-COVID. And so coming back to those documents and saying, we were here, but now we're here. And in part, that's because we have different jurisdictions and different cultures. And so how do we move forward in unity? Again, whenever there's an opportunity to bring, of course, community members into this work and to celebrate with community members, that's where we've seen the absolute most success. I want to speak about a partnership really tangibly here. We have Enoch Cree Nation and the City of Edmonton, one of our partners from this phase. They'll speak a little bit about this because I'm going to show a video really shortly here. But they've really succeeded because they put a strong foundation down for their partnership. So they had real strong support from both the elected level and the staff level. They have committed co-chairs to that collaborative working group. They've taken an incubator approach. And so what I mean by that is that they thought of all these different ideas at this shared table and pulled in the departments that would be needing to work on each initiative when they arose. So again, they spread that collaboration wide and far into those two governments and organizations, rather than just having a select few who are really the champions of this work. It was really important for them to sign a MOU in a really significant, culturally significant way, which I think really translated into this partnership. They've worked on a real broad number of initiatives, again, because of that incubator approach. And rather than going into too much detail, I'm instead going to just share the video and we'll hear from them what they've been collaborating on. So here we go.
Nation and the City of Edmonton have been neighboring communities for quite some time. Historically, these two communities have worked independently of each other, despite the close proximity. They have coexisted with minimal and sporadic sharing of information between the two governments. This is changing.
Well, in a time of reconciliation, it's critical that all governments
Can you turn it up?
think about our relationships with Indigenous peoples and with Indigenous communities, and particularly if you're next door neighbors, it's especially important to build relationships and maintain them.
With a clear vision for their joint relationship, they're bringing these two communities together to promote collaboration, innovation, and friendship.
There's such a great opportunity here to not only learn from our friends in Enoch, but also to enjoy cultural exchanges. You know, I really think Edmonton will soon have the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada. We should aspire to be Canada's most vibrant Indigenous city and be welcoming people from around the world to enjoy that part of our culture.
Working together with principles of mutual prosperity, building happy and healthy communities will make both communities stronger. With collaboration, community economic development and land use planning is possible.
Well, when we first signed the MOU and we were contemplating the principles behind it, we had always anticipated that the government-to-government relationship would somehow deepen into a community-to-community relationship.
CEDI, the First Nations Municipal Community Economic Development Initiative, brings together First Nations and municipalities to build a structured, formalized relationship through joint community economic development planning and initiatives. The important thing to demonstrate is that this kind of dedication is possible to implement with a large city and First Nation.
Enoch and Edmonton, from the very beginning, they had very strong leadership from the mayor and from the chief. They sat down and put together an MOU, which was really a very formalized way of saying we have a future together, we have a long-term vision.
In 2016, CEDI brought the City of Edmonton and Enoch Cree Nation together to come to an agreed fundamental understanding of why the two jurisdictions should join together in conversation. From there, a working group was created.
We realized if we wanted to get anywhere, we needed a great working structure that had representatives from the elected officials as well as from staff.
Information sharing between community partners is more efficient and information is much more accessible.
I would say the shift has been significant. Nowadays, it's very common to see our staff here at Edmonton Tower. It's very common to see city staff out in Enoch. And not only are we seeing enthusiasm for the relationship that we have together, but people are bringing innovation to the table as well.
The working group aims to continue this relationship, much like the treaty, as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river flows.
Enoch and Edmonton have always had a relationship, but I wouldn't always define that relationship as being necessarily positive or healthy in the past. So the MOU really signifies a turning point in that relationship where we made a commitment to come together and build and maintain a positive relationship.
At this time, they're considering joining the two communities through transit, recreation and park development, housing, and land use planning.
You know, coming together, as my friend Dawn Iveson says, in this area, we're all treaty, so we all share together. Today, in that room, I saw our two youth councils coming together
It was collaboration. It was building a relationship, and they can look back on today and say we started our relationship in a proactive, good way.
This is the first time that both jurisdictions have come together in partnership to discuss and facilitate projects alike.
This relationship with Enoch has evolved from thinking about, is there something specific we could do together, to how do we want to change the way we work together for the future? We are not just doing this for a transaction because we need something. We want to shift the way we work together. And this work with Enoch and the MOU has really shown me that this is about changing culture in a big way.
So we're almost at time here. I'll just briefly share that, we've been adapting to COVID, and this is the new way that we do group photos. And you'll see here our friends from Shuswap Indian Band and District of Invermere standing on the banks of where they're creating a symbolic and physical connection between their two communities with an active transportation bridge. So that's really, really exciting. And obviously they call this their band photo. They look like it's an album cover, but there's a lot that has been done. And really in response to the pandemic study, we really saw that there was a gap in knowledge specifically about how First Nations and municipalities respond to emergency management, but also to economic recovery and resilience. And so we've created a tool that has reached, I think, a lot of folks over the last couple of months. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this, Cando is actually hosting us to give a webinar on exactly this tool on March 17th. So we'll be doing some promotion for that, but stay tuned if you're interested to hear a little bit more about that. A little bit about our tools and guides, which are all available on the Cando website. Lots of ways to stay in touch with us. Please find us on Facebook if you're interested. We have a really great collaboration network, the First Nation Municipal Collaboration Network. You can search that and we'll love to accept you into our group. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. So thanks very much for the time, and I look forward to the discussion to follow.
Awesome. Thank you, Marissa, so much for casting a light on, what you're doing. It's so hopeful. I'm super excited, being from Edmonton, super excited about the collaboration and the partnership with Enoch First Nation and all the other stories that you had shared about. So thank you so much for lending us a little bit of your time this afternoon. So we're going to break out into our small groups. So you'll all have an opportunity to share. It's been a year since we've been into this pandemic, so we've had to pivot, we've had to shift, we've had to adapt. So this is an opportunity just to share, what you're doing, what community, what organization you're part of, and just share, what's going on in your neck of the woods. So we're going to break out into a couple of groups. There will be 2 facilitators. We have about 30 minutes, and then we're going to come back to the bigger group and just kind of each group will highlight very shortly, one thing that was spoken about in the group. Also, I might recommend when you do go into your group, if you could turn your video on, that would be awesome. But if you're camera shy or maybe you're just connected to audio, no problem. So there's no pressure, but in your small group, if you feel comfortable, turn that camera on. All right, so we're gonna part our separate ways just for about 30 minutes, then we'll see you back here for the bigger group.